Hi, it's Anne-Marie from Child Life Therapy. Back with another chat, another roundup about the Blake Lively lawsuit, and I have got notes. I don't like to have notes. I try to do these things off the cuff if I can. I prefer to, because my notes tend to be really messy. But yeah, I might put quite a few details in the description box. I'm going to put the link to Child USA's letter or amicus brief, however you properly term it, because it came to light last night for me. I was watching some of the other content creators, including Ashley Brianna Eve, who's doing a really good job of it as well. But it's quite inflammatory, is what Child USA have written. When you are somebody that kind of is a Justin supporter, you know, if you read that from an emotional perspective of somebody who cares about what's being done to this person, it really is worded quite harshly, because it goes a lot into the statistics of the R word, SH, SA against men, women, a lot of information about SA and assault and R against children, and the likelihood of it and the difficulties in being able to speak up. It's really, really intense, and it brings up people like Jeffrey Epstein and Dr. Luke, you know, and you're thinking, well, what has this got to do with Justin? Are you lumping him in with, you know, some of these people? It brings in Johnny Depp and Amber Heard, and it kind of is worded as if Amber was proved to be a survivor of, you know, domestic abuse, which is interesting. It's kind of nullifying the result of the verdict, if you like. It's almost kind of, without actually saying that, stating that enough was said that she could be called a survivor or described as a survivor, which a lot of people would have an issue with, I think. I'm not saying that bad things didn't happen to her entirely over living with Johnny Depp. I'm sure it wasn't always the most comfortable situation, but she was there. I think most of us think about Amber Heard was that she was there for reasons with Johnny, don't we? That, you know, there was payoffs involved for her in being with him and putting up with some of the stuff that she did do. I think most people would kind of have an issue with her being like a poster child, and that's kind of what I said on my comment on somebody's video yesterday. These organisations, they can't truly believe that Blake is the poster child for this, can they? For this defence of using this section of the Civil Code 47.1 to prevent retaliatory lawsuits against people that speak up about instances of SA, SH and the rest of it. But one of the main primary focuses of this 47.1 is that any accusations made have to be without malice. So straight away, kind of all of us that are Team Baldoni is, how is she ever gonna, you know, I think most of us would think, well, Justin's side should have an easy time proving that there was malice. So, you know, is 47.1 kind of a moot thing? But the thing is, if she can use that to her advantage, then this thing comes in of treble damages. And that it's interesting to discuss this, because Blake has dropped these claims of intentional emotional distress and negligent emotional distress, and that's focused on the retaliation and the defamation. So everything that happened during the promo that was said about her that presumably she thinks is Justin's fault, and this invisible, untraceable, magical smear campaign, she's just dropped those claims against that. But she's done the typical narcissist maneuver, using her attorneys who are happily spouting her BS to say, oh yes, that was just for streamlining the case's purposes. And what was the language used? We're going to be having these expansive new claims and massive additional compensatory claims on all of the rest of the stuff, basically. So we're just kind of, you know, dismissing the minimal stuff, is how they're trying to say it, to get past this concept of Blake not wanting to give up her medical records, basically. But that language is really interesting to me, because that's like typical narcissistic threats, is let's make it as threatening as possible. Let's use language that will terrify. Let's use language that makes them scared of the financial safety and the future and all of the rest of it. It's kind of like when you get those spam emails or text messages, and often people are like, well, I don't know if this is real or not real. And the thing is, if it feels like it's threatening you, then it's not real. It's not from a genuine company. If it's saying, act now, or do this now, or this will happen to you, or you will lose this, or you'll be locked out of whatever. If it's threatening you, it's not right, basically. But this is kind of what's being used here. It's like, don't think you're getting away with this. Don't think you've won here, because we're going to get you back anyway. It's kind of that kind of language, which is that really childlike narcissistic thing. So she's dropped these claims that were the severe element, the kind of extra element on top. So not just like distress, but like severe. So the pain, humiliation, harassment, the severe emotional distress. Those are the claims that, well, we're still waiting to hear, aren't we, whether they're going to agree whether it's with prejudice, so it can't come back, or without prejudice, so she can raise it at the future thing. But the judges said, no, if you're going to dismiss these things, that's it. You two sort it out between you. The judge is kind of having to, in some ways, I'm sure the judge feels like he's dealing with children on both sides when it comes to attorneys, but I guess they often feel like that with attorneys. Attorneys squabble among themselves and expect the judge to figure it out, and the judge goes, that is not my deal. You sort it out and you bring it to me when you've sorted it out between you, and then I'll sign off on it, basically. So he's saying, she's saying she's dropping them, so that means she can't ever refer to anything that is in records that she doesn't want to present. But she is still, this is the interesting part to me, because her lawyers, so Ezra Hudson and Mike Gottlieb, still say that they are going to still chase emotional distress through all of the other claims. So like the SH, the defamation, the other aspects of it, the false light, what else have we got? All of the things that I said on my last video. So she's still going to chase this emotional distress through that. But I find that aspect interesting, because she's still going to, how can you, go for SH and all of that without proving that you've had emotional distress? You know what I mean? How do you sort out damages and all of the rest of it if your client will not give evidence or proof of what it's done to them, or a conversation that's been had, or even just 1 hour with a therapist or whatever it is? That's my interest. I'm trying to figure that one out, and I've kept looking around and I haven't seen clear evidence yet of how they continue to chase emotional distress when she's clearly not going to provide any evidence that she's suffered emotional distress. So that's kind of interesting to me. And what else is supposedly going on is, in the last couple of days, they're saying like apparently Blake has still been bombarding Taylor with texts and emails and the rest of it, trying to get back on good terms. Now, I'm always suspicious, even though they say like Daily Mail, they say that Daily Mail, when they have a story, that it's come from provable sources, like genuine places. But I read a lot of that Daily Mail stuff, and I think it tends to be often poorly written. And I think, is this real? Or is it just maybe sources that are close, but are just spouting nonsense to, facilitate an agenda? I don't know. But on the other hand, if Blake is truly a narcissist, as most of us think she is, it is a tactic that even when you've had like a massive falling out, when they've done terrible things to you and jeopardized you, they will text you, email you, call you, show up on a website you have and drop something on your comment form, go in a group that you run on Facebook or whatever. They will actively plague you on every avenue that is open to you, and they won't care who knows about it or who sees it or the repercussions of it. So I do know from first hand that can happen, that you think, how can you possibly still think it's okay to contact me after what you've done, what you've accused me of, what you've caused me to be a part of, that they will still think they have a right to contact you, that it's a narcissistic thing. They have a right. They've got an attachment to you that tells them that they can feed off you, that no matter what you feel or what you need or what's being done to you, that they have the right to have access to you, to forward their own agenda or to get you back or whatever it is. And my feeling about Taylor and Blake and about you and Ryan has always been that they groomed them, basically. There's a reason Ryan latched himself onto Hugh Jackman, who's far more powerful and influential at the time, and, you know, has consistently sucked up to him over the length of the friendship. There's a reason Blake latched onto Taylor Swift, you know, and made sure. And even that's up in arms, isn't it? Is she truly like Blake, the godparents to Blake's children? Because there's interviews and stuff that's come out now that apparently that for James, Blake's first child, the sisterhood of the Travelling Pants co-stars thought they were godparents to James. And then there's evidence of Blake in an interview saying, no, my sister is my child's godparent. Of course she is, because if anything happens, I'd want her to go there. So it's, and then like a few years down the line, when, you know, because Taylor didn't come on board until after Blake's first child was born, and suddenly she's a godparent to all three of them. And it's like, well, what is the truth? Does anybody know the truth when they're attached to Blake and Ryan? Ryan confirmed in an interview that Taylor was the godmother. And of course you can have more than one godmother and all of this, but was there ever ceremonies? You know, is there any proof that they ever had like any kind of religious ceremony, a naming ceremony? And I don't know if you have godparents for a naming ceremony, but it's like, and this is it. It's like when you're dealing with narcissists, you can't put your finger on anything. There's everything you try and touch to kind of make a point or prove something, it just disintegrates in your hand. The goalpost shifts or whatever it is. And it's like, that's what I was thinking today. Because like in my practice, I will often have ladies as clients that are in narcissistic relationships, and they come to me and they say, I need to change how I deal with this person. I need to be able to love them better, or I need to be able to not do the things that I do that irritate them. And it's like, it's quite difficult for me as a practitioner, because one of the questions I often, you know, when they describe these kinds of relationships to me and what they are doing to them, I always have to say, do you want to stay with this person? And you kind of feel a bit as a therapist, like, is that my business to ask? But in a way it is, because like when you do what I do, because what I do is we get scenes from the past that are about the issue at hand, and we kind of reframe them in hypnosis, and we give you a hypnotic audio about what you do want to have in future. So it's very important that I know how you want your life to unfold, and I don't want to make you be less than or accommodating or whatever it is in order to make life easier living with a narcissist. I have a friend, and she won't mind me sharing, that when we first worked together, when we didn't really know each other very well, she kind of told me that she had this great relationship, and you know, she wanted to be more available, you know, to love and to have that and be a great partner and sort herself out in all kinds of ways. Did all the work. He didn't come up in the work at all. It was all childhood stuff. Made the recording and brought in, oh, you'll be having this wonderful life with this person and your partner. And like, as soon as she'd been listening to it for a couple of days, it were like, can we take that bit out? Because I just know it's wrong now. You know, you quickly realise when you do the work that you're not the problem, and there's nothing you can do that will change what they do, that they're going to do to you, what they're going to do to you regardless. And I feel like with Justin now, at first I was thinking it's almost like he's been in a narcissistic relationship with Blake, where you're always the one that's trying to please and facilitate and not make waves and stay silent and choke everything down in order not to provoke an argument. But in a way now, when I thought about it a bit longer, it's almost like he was the child of narcissistic parents, like Ryan and Blake were the parents, and he was the child on the end of having to grow up with narcissistic parents. That's what I feel like about it now, because there's literally nothing he could have done that would have changed the outcome of it, you know. And I'm sure he was bombarded with stuff and just gave up on stuff. And it's that thing of, you know, it's no wonder he was sick, that he got a spinal infection through all of this, because when people come at you from all angles and there is no limits on what they say or what they will threaten you with, it just absolutely exhausts you. It's like somebody's just given you some kind of numbing substance, and you can barely move your arms and legs and get out of bed. That's what it's like. It's completely damages your soul in a way. So one of the other things about this idea of her wanting to use 47.1 and this threat of treble damages is it's interesting to point out that money is a big motivating factor with Ryan and Blake. Money means most to them. The emotional distress aspect doesn't actually mean that much to them in a way, because it's not real. But it's also that fact of money means the most to them, and that's why in their eyes that's the biggest punishment that they can do to Justin. So the money aspect and the treble damages and the way they keep going on about these expansive claims, and you're gonna have to pay, you know, Steve Sarowitz will be giving us that $100 million that he was going to use to fight us. You know, that'll be just our payoff, basically. That's the kind of things that they're saying, because in their eyes, money is far more of a thing than emotional distress is. Emotional distress, you can just say, oh, I'm streamlining, I'm just cutting those two things out, I'm just going to get you on other things, you know, I'm going to come and get you where it's really going to hurt you, in your pockets. But they're forgetting that, you know, Justin is not like a financially driven person, he's an emotionally driven person, you know, and he's a humanitarian and the rest of it, if you like. So let me just have a quick look. I think that's most of what I was going to cover today. Yeah, I'm sure there's other things. I always get off these and think, oh, I was going to do this and I was going to do that. So what I'll do in the description box, I'll put a link to Child USA's amicus brief, so you can read that for yourself. And I'll also just probably make the list of what Blake's claims actually are, so that it's there, so that it can always be referenced. But yeah, I'm sure there were more things that I was going to say. But yeah, I definitely feel like both Hugh Jackman and Taylor Swift were groomed, that they were there for the value of them and the prestige and and it's like a security blanket as well, isn't it? It's that extra level of armour that if anything does go wrong in their underhanded dealings, they've always got that. I mean, you couldn't ask for too much bigger ones, really, could you, that are kind of universally. I mean, yeah, sure, Taylor gets a lot of stick from people, but she's more universally adored than she is anything else. And you've got all the power of the Swifties and their buying power and all of that behind it. And you've also got Hugh Jackman, who is universally loved, adored, considered to be a good person. They are two highly effective beards in their own way for people who have ulterior motives. And also narcissists, you know, they often, not knowingly, but kind of have people around that they admire in their own narcissistic way. They'll never kind of truly believe that they're better than them or whatever, but they'll kind of say what needs to be said in order to present a certain face to the world or a certain facade. And I'm sure Taylor has found a lot of this exhausting in her dealings with Blake. I'm sure a lot of the times that she was out and about with her, she kind of thought, why, you know, like, because you have those relationships, don't you, where with people where you go out with and you come back and you feel refreshed and you feel like you've had a good time. And you also have those people that when you go out and you come back home, you think, oh, and you just crash, don't you? Or you need a treat or a reward for having dealt with it, or half a bottle of wine or whatever it is. It'd be interesting to know which side of the equation Blake fell on. But yeah, it's a funny one, isn't it? Because I remember thinking about that Super Bowl where Blake went with Taylor, and I looked at what Blake was wearing, and I'm always a bit careful about this because sometimes I'm not sure what's politically correct anymore to say, but I kind of looked at how Blake looked when she went to the Super Bowl with Taylor, and she had all her hair like ringleted, like massive hair, and she had like a red tracksuit on, didn't she, and big chunky gold jewelry. And I looked at her and thought, that's like kind of like a black girl aesthetic, and I don't mean that insulting in any way, but you know, it's kind of like it's almost like a rap culture look, you know, how a girl like in that kind of orbit would be dressed, like big chunky gold jewelry, tracksuit hanging off your shoulders, you know, lovely beautiful big afro. And I thought, it was like playing a part to me. And I think that's the thing, isn't it? It keeps coming back to this idea of, I don't think Blake Lively truly knows who she is. This thing of, I don't play characters, I make the characters be me. And yeah, so those are my thoughts for the day. Let me know what you're thinking about it all. But I do think that we kind of have to try and keep an open mind over these organisations that are doing the amicus briefs. I mean, there's the one that Ezra Hudson is connected to that's a bit dubious. But I guess some of these organisations, they may truly be afraid that Blake Lively is going to wreck this 47.1. And again, it comes back to that thing of, you know, these organisations may truly not want to be seen to be supporting Blake Lively, but are actually very scared of the damage that is going to be done. And I guess some of these organisations are well versed in dealing with narcissistic people and will know that narcissistic people have no qualms whatsoever about what they destroy. You know, for future generations, the legacy of it. They're not bothered about the damage. They don't think that far ahead. It only matters what happens to them and what they can get out of it. So I guess we kind of have to try and keep an open mind as best as possible, which is difficult for those of us that are Justin supporters and justice supporters. It's quite difficult for us to see organisations that can on one hand seem like they're coming out in support of her, but it would kind of be nice if there was a little rider somewhere that says, we don't actually like Blake Lively, but we feel we have to do this. I think we'd all feel a bit better if that was happening, wouldn't we? Anyway, thank you for watching. Please do hit that like and subscribe and share if you can, and drop me a comment below. Let me know what your thoughts are on it all. See you later.